Welcome back to the Eric Krown crypto channel, wishing you a happy to start to say Sunday, a macro Sunday morning over here, as we're going to be going over the higher term time frame picture, how everything is kind of coming along on this long-term thread that we've been running on this channel for seems like forever now, basically. So ultimately, it is a continuation of that long-term analysis, and well, there's actually a lot of very interesting things that we do see that are completely new, actually, simply because, well, we got another monthly and bi-monthly closure, and that's going to massively influence the higher term time frame picture. Anyways, other than that, I want to once again give the spotlight to the buyback promotion going on, as I got 0% on maker fees for derivative contract orders. Plus, you can get the Jewel Light for free for the first 30 days if you follow the directions in the link in the description below. And because Bybit's going to be going KYC, as pretty much every exchange is going KYC, or at least inevitably will, they do have a decentralized exchange arm called Apex, which may or may not be available to you. Obviously, you need to do the research to figure out if that is true in your particular case. And there is an affiliate link in the description below as well for that particular decentralized exchange, which will actually award you 5% off of your fees for the lifetime of your account, which is actually not so bad. Maybe even more to come as well. Anyways, let's just start off right in over here with the easy stuff. So starting off with the bi-monthly, as it did close when we ended April last week, a few things did get confirmed and are in continuation phase as well. So in this case, first, maybe not necessarily foremost, but first in front of my face is going to be the bi-monthly RSI right here, putting in that drive of hidden bullish divergence. Yes, that is still very much active right around the edge of the neutral zone, which is a good sign as well. You can actually see that all prior lows have essentially kind of bottomed on that hidden bullish divergence as well. Did I say hidden bearish divergence? I meant hidden bullish divergence. Anyways, you can see this first one over here. You can see the second one over here. It's the same thing actually on the monthly as well. But, you'd expect these time frames to kind of, play one off the other, and you want to see your monthly lead into the bi-monthly and then actually lead into the quarterly as well, which, by the way, the quarterly is actually already there as well. Anyways, in this case, yes, that's still very much active. And then what's more important here is the bi-monthly volatility represented by the BBWP indicator. So in this case, we did get another tick on this particular one, and it's very, very interesting because it would suggest that if we are going to see an upside move, it very likely happens, like a significant upside move, it very likely happens within the next 2 months here, starting in May, so May, June, and as we'll go over a little bit later, probably sooner rather than later in this particular one. And you can also see that, let me go over here. Yes, it was over here. You can also see that of the prior times that we've seen volatility this low, when it crosses the moving average has actually been a pretty damn good indication of when the, when the macro cycle was really getting geared up for a nice move to the upside. And we have this one over here as well. Anyways, yeah, you can see it, with these green vertical bars correlating to those regions alongside hidden bullish evidence. These were typically after, well after the low was put in, to be fair. But more importantly, before Bitcoin was kind of getting ready for that first push up. You can see that right here. You can see that right here. And maybe we see the same thing over here as well. Anyways, moving on to the next thing, I did also want to highlight the fact that the bi-monthly Jewel Light has actually officially turned white, or it's actually technically not officially turned white. We won't see it close, but obviously before that closure happens, it has to have this particular signature right here, which it obviously does, supported by DMI in the background. So essentially what it would be saying is that, the major downside pressure has certainly subsided here, and it's really time to be looking for that next major push to the upside. So I still remain with my long-term sort of analysis that Bitcoin very likely has the macro lows in, and if it is going to go lower, there's going to be time to kind of decipher that. Basically, as long as Bitcoin's above like 20 to 21,000 bucks, I just don't even think that's like a reasonable topic of conversation. In that, it's reasonable to be looking for anything lower than the current lows of like 15,000 bucks. So like those 12,000, 14,000, 10,000, 8,000, $3,000 targets. Not so sure about that one, man, or at least not in the current trajectory. But of course, we do want to see this one close. But again, another sort of, compounding factor that would be suggestive that, hey, it's really time to be looking for a macro sideways into a kind of trending upside move, on these higher term timeframes here. Anyways, so we've gone through that. I do want to briefly mention that the quarterly time frame right in over here, same sort of thing, right? Has the hidden bullish evidence of the last few lows, and we do see, we do see a very similar setup to the past as well. So we see the monthly, bi-monthly, and quarterly kind of all playing hand in hand, which is, traditionally what we want to be seeing. Agreement between these time frames. Moving on to the next thing, I also wanted to point out that the bi-monthly stochastic oscillator is actually gonna have a chance to cross the upside here, or not here, but on the next closure, which is not coming for like a little bit less than 2 months, to be fair. But you know, again, you want to see all these things moving together with each other. And on the bi-monthly time frame, you can see that the pivot, in order to force the bi-monthly stochastic to the upside, would be with a closure above about 27,000 bucks, or 26,900 to be exact. In this case, that essentially does imply that as long as Bitcoin's above 27,000 bucks, let's say, I'm just going to round it off here. You know, I look at that as a base, and I look at upside in the more short term, more likely than downside below that region. Obviously below $27,000, that would obviously, well, that would very obviously, you know, change the overall picture, and do have to be looking for moves back down to 20,000 or 21,000 bucks, let's say, with a bounce along the way, probably at 25. Anyways, yes, so we've gone through that. Obviously, the monthly on the new closure did something significant as well. It did close up, the stochastic also did close above the critical zone and above the moving average at the same time. We've seen this happen many a time in the past before as well. Let me actually just mark them off so that you can see very, very easily here. So I'm just going to mark off where the stochastic oscillator actually crossed the moving average, and it's going to be represented by these green vertical bars. Boom, boom, boom. It might get a little bit confusing, but hopefully not too much. Just be the second one in these quick ones right here. And you can see again, you know, the first one essentially marks, hey, it's time to be looking for sideways and up. And the second one, well, kind of puts it into like the next gear, if you will, you know, right here, right here, right here. This one obviously did not work as well, but on a closing basis, I mean, it basically did go sideways for the next year or so, if you're just looking at closures here. And then perhaps the same thing over here as well. Anyways, yes, we've gone through that. Monthly stochastic oscillator remains to the upside as long as Bitcoin is closing above 16,100. You actually notice that that number went down from last month's closure to this month's closure, meaning that or usually that's a pretty damn good sign when the pivot for flipping it around actually goes down rather than up, even though the oscillator itself went up. Just, you know, just kind of an observation right there, not necessarily something to like base around, but generally a good sign, or generally a good sign for more upside. I mean, I really don't want to be picking sides myself. That's not the purpose of this channel. The purpose of this channel is just to provide fiscally based information, and then you kind of make your decisions for yourself. But yeah, you know, good for the boo laws if you're kind of coming at it from that angle. It's a weird thing actually that we always kind of default to, like, it's good. It's like good means up. It's like, why does it always have to be up? I mean, down's good as well. Down is good. Up is good. It's all fucking good. Anyways, yeah, so we've gone through that. And now I want to bring up a completely new setup over here that is baking. We've spoken about a similar thing to this many a time in the past. I do think that it is once again time to be bringing this one out because it is maturing here, but it is not 100% not fully mature just yet. So I want it on the radar because when it does fire off, it's probably going to happen relatively fast. But we have another 2-day volatility versus stochastic momentum signature baking in. And you can see over here that the 2-day volatility represented by the BBWP indicator is getting back down towards those extreme lows. In fact, I would really even consider this whole area that we've been operating in since basically middle of April as coalescing within these regions, essentially setting up for a rather large move. Anyways, anytime that we have seen the 2-day volatility get below 10 percentile or more and stay down there for longer, by the way, as well, the expansion phase that naturally follows after that, or mathematically follows after that, has led to an average move around about, I actually don't think that that's fully correct based off, yeah, I want to be going off of this one over here. These ones are a lot more dialed in, but you know, we're looking somewhere around like a 25 to maybe even 30% move. Yeah, if it's a short signal, about 26% average return. If it's a long signal, about 28% average return. So going back into it over here, that combined with the direction of the stochastic oscillator when volatility expansion is happening, which is not happening right now. It's not fucking happening right now. So it's just on the radar. But yeah, I mean, it's getting close. Has led to a high correlation of the move in the same direction of the stochastic oscillator. So I'm going to be keeping more and more close tabs now from here on out to see what direction the 2-day stochastic oscillator is, because once we get volatility expansion, it's going to be a high correlation between, or there's going to be high correlation in the direction of the stochastic oscillator. So in this case, it is right now to the upside. Now, to be fair, I mean, to be fair, on the next closure, which is not tonight, it's going to be tomorrow night, Monday. If it does close below 29,000 bucks, it will turn back onto the downside. So obviously that would be, more downside enthused. Now I did also mark off that there is, a nice trend line kind of governing the lows since basically September of 2022, connected with the November lows, like the actual lows, the lows of the cycle thus far. And then of course, the January lows that we saw and the more recent lows in March as well. Could this play off of here, like come down something like this, play off of it, and then go up, and then we see volatility expansion if it's going to be a bullish one? Yeah, definitely possible right there. But as far as volatility expansion goes, I want to see the 2-day BBWP with a positive slope above the moving average, and both of them like really expanding, significantly right there. If and when that does happen, we can start to reference these statistics over here. So in the case of a long setup, meaning that the 2-day time frame stochastic oscillator pointed to the upside, there has been over the past 19 iterations, which actually is the full history of Bitcoin. 15 out of those 19 did provide a pretty large upside move, giving it an almost 79% strike rate, an average return there of about 28%, standard deviation of about 10, and the average time taken was about 17 days, so a little over about 2.5 weeks basically, from that setup given. Now I suspect that this one will be firing off probably within the next week, or like I would say 5 to 10 days, very, very likely. So this probably takes us into the end of this month of May. And if it's a long one, probably looking at about a 28% average return again, which depending upon where it fires off, obviously, but let's just kind of, pretend that it fires off like somewhere around here. 28% puts you at about 35,000 bucks. That's a very interesting number, isn't it? Because that's actually where one of the last major CME gap olos are coming in from. I think this was like a little bit a year ago. Yeah, it's right on over here. That would be, from the April breakdown of last year. I think even if I probably throw on a Fibonacci retracement right here, what do you know? You see some fibs coming in within that region as well. Anyways, going back into it, let's go back on over here and back on over here. In the event that we do see the stochastic oscillator turn to the downside, we have stats for that as well. Out of the full history of Bitcoin, there's actually 19 as well, 19 prior iterations. So it's very interesting to see that both the long side and the short side have equal opportunity right there. Equal opportunity, it's very equitable. It's good. it's very socially, justicely, whatever the fuck. It's, you know what I'm trying to say. All right. If you're on this channel, you already fucking get it. Anyways, 16 out of those 19 did play it with severe downside moves. So slightly higher hit rate right here at just above 84%. For an average return of just under 26% with a standard deviation of 8 over the course of an average of about 14 days, actually. So again, would kind of take us into the end of the month, and we'd be looking at something like this. 25% down puts Bitcoin in the low $20,000 territory. Personally speaking, I do think that it actually probably would go a little bit lower, but that kind of plays hand in hand with the weekly Gaussian over here as well, which we've been speaking about quite often on this channel. But basically it's this. Look, if Bitcoin, as long as Bitcoin's playing between the mean band and the top side band, upside resolution is a lot more likely than downside resolution, with full-on confirmation above the top side of the Gaussian channel, which is 30,600. If Bitcoin closed above there today, that would indicate a major breakout to me. Likely the next move up somewhere between like 33 to 35,000 bucks, and then potential for more as well, maybe up to even like 38, 39. By the same token, if Bitcoin breaks below the mean band, that very mean band, probably looking somewhere around the bottom side of the Gaussian channel here, which is 21,000 bucks, which would be obviously very, very close to that targeted region that we just spoke about, based off of the stats over here. So if that does happen to the downside, there will be many a reason to be looking for severe downside, obviously. Anyways, yes, we've gotten that. Let's see, what else do I want to get into? We can get into some fun stuff over here. Why not? Or do we want to get into this one? I mean, we spoke about this one so many times now, but basically the timing between about a year before the halving and about a year before the halving, we typically see Bitcoin break out of the long-term downtrend and put in a pretty severe rally, followed by a pretty severe crash, actually, as well. So I think that this one also kind of plays hand in hand with the analysis. So I guess we'll go over it. Why not, man? Make this one nice and fucking long for you so you can hear my lovely, raspy lesbian voice in the early morning hours. or early late hours if you're over there in the Western Hemisphere of this world. But yeah, anyways, starting off with the first cycle over here, the green vertical bars represent the, what's it called? The actual halvings. And about 50, well, not about, but literally 52 weeks before the halving date, you can see that Bitcoin broke out of this long-term downtrend, put in an initial major rally, comes back down very, very harshly. It doesn't look like much on this chart, but it certainly is. Like this is it's a 45% fucking move to the downside. Like that's significant. And then works its way upwards and onwards. Same thing over here in 2014, 2015. You can see that it breaks above that long-term downtrend 54 bars before the halving date itself. Goes on an initial run, booms, comes back down significantly as well. And same thing in 2018, 2019 as well. Breaks above the long-term downtrend over here, 58 bars beforehand. You're seeing this really ship like slowly get bigger, larger and larger. Big run up over here, big down over here. You get the idea. And then it looks like the same thing is going on as well, as we are 66 bars from the official halving date, or not the official ones, but the presumed one, the estimated one. We don't know exactly when it's going to be actually. And as you can see, you know, Bitcoin breaking out about 66 bars beforehand. So we do have some sort of a weird relationship going on with the halving date and about a year beforehand, which does seem to get longer over time. 52 bars over here, which is exactly 1 year, 54, 58, 66. That's 2, that's 4, and that's 8. Interesting. Let's see if the next one increases to like 16 as well. That would be very, 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 very interesting right there. Anyways, in this case, you can see that thus far, you know, Bitcoin has been putting in a pretty significant rally from that actual break. The official break happening right here. So we are on day number 77 of this one. So keep that in your mind. And about a 40% rally, a little bit above about a 40% rally has emerged thus far from the break. So let's actually go into the data over here. Again, there's not really much that we're going off of, but it makes it fun nonetheless. So for the three prior halvings, we noticed that first major move to the upside was an average move of about 140%. You know, you can see the actual, you know, it's just 1, 2, 3 right here, 155, 102, and 167 over the course of about an average of 100 days. Again, some good variance within there. But, you know, we're on day number 77 right now. So that gives us about, what, 3 to 4 weeks before we hit that average. And the average move, obviously, you know, we have not seen a 100% move right there. Hey, nice job, Mr. Bot. Well done. Am I on the right chart? No, I'm not. Here's the right chart. Yes, we've seen a 40% move or 42% move. What would a 100% move look like on top of current price action? That would put Bitcoin more around like 42,000 bucks. If we saw like the full 140, that actually puts it probably around, yeah, that puts it a lot closer to a Fib-Swanny target over here in the deep $40,000 territory. Also the 786 Fib right there too. So I guess that's like the ultra hopium, at least in my opinion. Now I have a strong amount of respect for Mr. Fib-Swanny, but I like, personally speaking, that's the highest that I can find for right now. Doesn't mean that, you know, it can't emerge, like targets higher can't emerge over time, but I don't have them myself right now. But yeah, you know, again, you kind of see the areas of interest along the way. And again, we kind of expect this rally to emerge or to continue, if it is going to continue, within the next few weeks here. So again, going hand in hand with the setup over here on the 2-day time frame, and over here, it would say, hey, if this rally is going to continue, we expect May to basically trade up. And then corrections come down in June. By the way, get ready for a really massive and nasty correction, some massive growthy green, or not green, but red dildos over here, because after that rally, over the course of an average of the next 90 days, there's been about an average 40% pullback crash. It's the proper word. So depending upon how high Bitcoin gets here first, let's say it gets to a Fib-Swanny target, what's 40% down? That puts Bitcoin at around like low 30s. What if Bitcoin only gets to like 38,000? Only 38. 40% puts you where? Puts you at about 23. You know, so on and so forth. somewhere around there, would basically be an area of interest. But for right now, I did think that that was rather interesting and kind of plays hand in hand with the rest of the analysis. One last thing over here, we could do two last things. One, the stock to DERP indicator, which, look, I don't put that much faith in these things, but it is interesting because it has worked, I guess. Again, kind of timing that halving, but it's in the blue zone right here. Blue is typically meant that Bitcoin is putting in the lows and getting ready for that long-term sideways transitioning, the old trans rainbow chart over here, into the magenta, I think is the color for that. And upwards and onwards is kind of the name of the game. It's basically time to be looking for long-term bases. Anyways, moving on to the next thing, maybe more interesting over here, the pi cycle high and low chart. I think a lot of people are aware of this one. On the high side is called basically all of Bitcoin's tops, almost to the T. This most recent one over here, I'm sure someone in the comments, no, it didn't call the top, didn't call the top. It's like, okay, it did kind of though, because you called the top in terms of price over here. Yeah, Bitcoin traded a little bit above that top, but if you sold over here, I think that would have been a pretty good trading decision. Just saying. Anyways, on the bottom side, it does have a relationship as well, calling the lows. Now, we've gone over this in the past, but I want to talk about what's new on this one. So what's new on this one is that the weekly moving averages right here, the short moving average and the short, the short simple moving average and the short exponential moving average have actually crossed. Meaning that the yellow is above the green and they're all above the red. So what does this mean from the past? Well, you can see the same thing happening over here, right? Low is in, okay. They all cross the upside over here, boom. This one actually was wrecked. But you can see that was pulled, quite significantly. Yeah. I mean, actually, this would be a good kind of point to what I'm saying. But over here, once the yellow regains the green, generally speaking, that's a good signal that, you're putting in long-term base, getting ready for long-term upside. Same thing over here, both above the red. Yellow crosses the green after this initial rally. Base is on the green, boom, upwards and onwards. And then, well, presumably same thing over here. You should see a pi cycle low, but it doesn't really have the history, I guess. And then same thing, yellow crosses the green right here, boom, sideways and up. So what would that essentially suggest? It would suggest that the green, when Bitcoin does initiate its pullback, the green moving average would probably be a major area to be mindful of, which is actually currently at $25,000, which again does kind of play hand in hand with the idea that Bitcoin is actually more likely to rally up first before playing out that next major pullback. So again, how will I know that I'm wrong on this, or that my synopsis is wrong on this? Below $27,000 or 26,900 if you want to be super exact. That's your first major warning signal, maybe even good enough. You want to go by the book. Below the mean band, which is 26 right now, would be indicative that Bitcoin's more likely to test closer to 20,000 than anywhere above 30,000 in the interim. But yeah, I think that's a good place for me to be leaving off. For right now, still leaning to the upside. The obvious next major breakout for Bitcoin would be a weekly closure above about 30,500 or 30,600. Just pop back above that that weekly topside band on the Gaussian, and at that point, very likely quick moves up somewhere like 34, 35, pull back there, maybe continuation of 38, 39. If things get really fucking crazy, then maybe even deep 40s, which would be pretty. It would be welcomed, but it'd also be like it seems pretty out of reach right now to myself. All right, sweet. Not that that matters. Yeah, I think that's a good place for me to be leaving off on this particular video. Yeah, want to be wishing you the best as always. Take care, much love, and see you hopefully soon.